Manhunter Deathmatch is a deadly game where 40 unlucky contestants fight to defend themselves against 3 waves of increasingly ferocious Manhunter packs. Each round will see our brave contestants face off against the full fury of 10 Manhunter packs. To make things even more unfair on our contestants, the difficulty will increase with each round, so if there's anybody still left alive by round 3, then they will be faced with the daunting challenge of fighting against a truly overwhelming horde of some of the most large and dangerous animals in all of Rimworld. Only the bravest will survive in this harrowing contest between man and beast. Each contestant must demonstrate their wit, their courage, and an indomitable will to shoot anything that walks on 4 legs. If they are to have any chance of being declared the winners of Manhunter Deathmatch. In this episode, our contestants will be defending the central kill box against a random mix of Scaria-infected base game animals. To give our contestants even the slimmest chance of surviving to the end of the game, they have been provided with a decent variety of ranged and close combat weapons. We're trying to focus on close to mid-range firepower, so I've given them an even mix of various assault rifles and SMGs, backed up by just as many chain shotguns. I also chucked 4 snipers into the mix to slightly increase our contestants' effective range. And last but not least, I gave them 3 minigunners to help thin the crowds a bit, as well as 4 Molotov guys to make sure that the whole map smells like a burning zoo. Out of the 40 contestants, 8 of them were dedicated to melee combat. These smug battle hipsters come equipped with cataphract armor, and some maybe slightly overpowered battle axes. There's a small handful of modded weapons in our loadout. The most obvious of these has got to be these AK-47s. They're actually called service rifles in the mod, and while they're not really OP in any way, the same cannot be said for what the battle hipsters are carrying. These Little World battle axes will kill a charging elephant in 2 hits. While this might seem ridiculously OP, by the time it comes to the second round, you will probably come to understand why we've got one of these knocking around. With a pretty much even mix of every weapon type, they were reasonably well equipped to deal with the dangers ahead. As the contestants headed towards the launch pad, I had to wonder just how many of them would still be alive at the end of the game. As they dropped into the arena, our contestants made themselves feel at home in a pair of rather austere barracks blocks. While the bedrooms look like they haven't been redecorated since the 1970s, I think that you will agree that the rec room looks pretty swish. They might as well make the most of the leisure facilities while they still have the chance, as pretty soon most of these contestants will most likely be dead. As soon as the contestants were well rested and fed, I switched the difficulty down to the lowest setting, like a coward, and then I went into dev mode and called in 10 ravenous Manhunter packs. While these Manhunter packs were indeed a bit ravenous, there wasn't really that many of them, and seeing as it would only be some cute little bunnies leading the charge, our contestants could be in for an easy first round. Next through the gate, we had a small pack of wolves followed by some monkeys. With the fearsome rabbits moving up, I got to organising the contestants, separating the melee squad from the rest of our guys, and forming an impressive firing line from all of the contestants equipped with guns. As our melee squad got into position, the killer rabbits were just seconds from entering the kill box. While the rest of the animal horde was slacking behind, the deadly rabbits charged headlong into our kill box. The AK guys managed to score some long-range kills, while the SMGs and the assault shotguns took care of the rest. Next to pass through the gate, we had another pack of psychotic bunnies, as well as a pack of wolves. Rather predictably, the rabbits went down without much of a fight, and the wolves were too few in number to really make any difference. While the next assault looked a bit more impressive, the lynxes charged into the kill box without any accompanying critters to absorb the incoming fire, so only one of them actually managed to make it to the front line. While our contestants only had a small handful of Molotov guys, they really helped to keep the ankle biters off our flanks. Two rather mangy bears led the next assault at the head of a formation of raccoons. The bears seemed to wander about with some confusion before dying ingloriously, leaving the raccoons to face a truly devastating torrent of fire. After they were swiftly erased, a pack of beavers wandered in, only to meet the same bullet-riddled fate as the last lot. And at last, a pack of man-hunting iguanas gently sauntered into the kill box, only to be mowed down by our brave contestants. Despite finishing the first round, the contestants had only taken a few minor scrapes and bruises. The manhunters had failed to provide an appropriate level of mortal danger to our contestants, and I always find it slightly disappointing when no one dies. We decided to store our new collection of animal corpse trophies by chucking them to the side of the road, just like the filthy roadkill they are. And mostly because when I built this place, I completely forgot to account for the gigantic corpse heaps that Manhunter Deathmatch was likely to produce. Seeing as they had barely warmed up yet, I didn't see any point in granting the contestants any sort of respite, so I increased the difficulty to Community Builder and devved in another 10 Manhunter packs. Round 2 would see our contestants face off against large Manhunter packs of Huskies, Arctic Wolves and Pumas, as well as yet more killer bunnies, rabid foxes, and a pack of particularly vicious Yorkshire Terriers. As the Manhunter packs made their way through the gauntlet, our contestants assembled in the central kill box. The Arctic Wolves started strong in the race, but the rabbits looked like they were determined to take the lead. As the scarier infected horde approached, our brave contestants were ready. The bunny rabbits claimed the grand prize, as they tactfully soaked up as many bullets as we could throw at them. Our contestants stood their ground against the rabbity wall of death, with our gunners too preoccupied shooting oversized rodents. Plenty of Arctic wolves managed to close the gap, but they were quickly dispatched by the mighty battle hipsters. Next into the kill box, we had foxes, followed by more Arctic wolves. The Molotovs seemed to be diverting the horde directly onto our flanks. As Moa held the centre, effortlessly one-hitting anything that moved, a huge pack of Huskies, Pumas and Arctic Wolves drew near. With the contestants struggling to hold the flanks, their firepower became unfocused and random, but thanks to the Molotov guys, the bulk of the animal assault was slowed as it passed through several fiery bottlenecks. When the guy with the minigun has to fight off wolves with his bare hands, you know things are bad. A bunch of our melee guys were down, leaving the second line to defend themselves. A major traffic jam formed in the centre, with the Huskies and the Pumas taking hits from all sides. As they crawled over piles of their dead four-legged comrades, Sty held his ground against the Cougars, but without armour, he could only last for so long. While most of the second line of contestants had been downed, our contestants would now face the dreaded Yorkshire Terriers. While some of them yipped their last yip as they absorbed the incoming fire with their little doggy brains, they attempted to nibble at fake Vikinger a little bit, but then he smashed their brains in with a steel club. As the last Yorkshire Terrier was resolved to die before retreat, I sent in my prized battle hipsters to finish this fight. Moa parried a vicious blow from the Yorkshire Terrier before honourably dispatching that small dog with a battle axe. I quickly undrafted our contestants and set our guys to rescue as many people as we could. 3 contestants were already dead, and 9 were downed. We rescued Sty as well as everyone else who had been downed, and while our hospital was big enough to hold everybody who was downed or injured, out of the 40 contestants, there was only a handful of doctors to treat everybody. As a result, we lost another 7 contestants to blood loss in the hospital. Sty managed to lose his entire jaw to a cougar paw, and yet he fought on to the very end. The death of 1/4 of our contestants in the second round will doubtless leave the surviving contestants a bit short-handed. As the contestants began to drag away the Scaria-infected animal corpses, it seemed pretty obvious that they would need some assistance if they were to have any hopes of fighting effectively in round 3. When all of the contestants were gathered, it was pretty obvious that they had taken considerable losses. The snipers were the only group without any casualties, probably because they were hiding at the back away from harm. Our support weapon guys saw their numbers halved, losing 1 minigunner and 3 Molotov guys. The melee squad had taken the most casualties, so anybody who managed to drop their gun would now be pressed into the melee squad. The contestants were definitely going to need more power armor if they were going to last 10 seconds in round 3, so I made a deal with our contestants wherein I would skip by the adventure story difficulty altogether and drop them straight into Strive to Survive. While this would dramatically increase the number of animals they would ultimately have to fight, I sent in a sizable care package as recompense. In exchange for an increased difficulty level, our contestants would be given access to a treasure trove of miniguns, battle axes, and most important of all, absolutely loads of cataphract armor. Despite the advantages offered by their shiny new kit, many of our contestants will still likely perish in the upcoming battle, and though they might fight with courage, honor, and some other qualities synonymous with bravery, for many of our contestants, this will be their final dawn. As the fire teams organized, our cataphract armored melee squad positioned themselves to protect our flanks. As our brave battle hipsters looked out over the central kill box, waiting anxiously for the carnage to unfold, I devved in 10 final Manhunter packs, and as they spawned into the game with an ear-splitting roar, our contestants were greeted by a terrible sight. Instead of fluffy bunnies and harmless Yorkshire Terriers, our contestants would now be pitted against packs of elephants, stampedes of rhinos, surging torrents of wargs, and even more elephants. And why not some polar bears too? From the looks of things, there's at least 80 large animals like elephants and rhinos, as well as about 80 wargs and about 160 cobras. The wargs were in it to win it from the start. As they charged the last leg of the gauntlet, a pack of elephants were hot on their tails. As the wargs sprinted into the kill box, they were greeted by a broadside of minigun fire. The chain shotguns and miniguns absolutely dominated at close range. As the wargs began to die off, the elephants charged our line, taking only a few losses to gunfire due to their high hit points, and quickly closing the distance, giving our melee squad one hell of a fight. As the battle hipsters slaughtered their first elephants, they were still yet to face the full brute force of the oncoming stampede. With large and deadly predators storming the kill box virtually unopposed, the situation was starting to look dangerous for our contestants. As Moa valiantly dispatched elephant after elephant with her battle axe, being repeatedly gored by the elephant's tusks began to take its toll, and she was already very badly mauled. Just as the stampede broke through the second line, I looked on in horrified astonishment. Our lead battle hipster was down! While fake Vikinger held his own in the south, the north flank looked like it was about to collapse. Overwhelmed by the elephant assault, the contestants executed a well-ordered retreat. While the manhunters had begun to seep in through the south and central entrances to the hospital, Nadine and Watts had become trapped and were left to the mercy of the unstoppable horde. The hospital was laughably indefensible, so the surviving contestants headed towards the northern barracks block. Cholaki was cut off from the retreat. He quickly found himself being launched across the room somehow. Theo took a few hits from the elephant's tusks. I'm really surprised that he didn't take any friendly fire. Despite leaving an impressive blood trail, he limped through our lines and took up his firing position next to the rest of the surviving minigunners. The calculated retreat into the North Barracks had earned for our contestants a defensible bottleneck for our 2 surviving axemen, which could double up as a solid firing position for our remaining minigunners. While it might have looked like fake Vikinger and Protheo were holding their ground for now, there was still over 100 deadly manhunters in desperate need for a one-way trip to the vet. It took only a cursory glance at their health stats to reveal just how quickly our last line of defense was being picked apart. While they held out bravely, fake Vikinger eventually succumbed to his wounds. His axe somehow teleported to the north end of the barracks. Suet took up fake Vikinger's axe as he led the last of our contestants on another totally calculated retreat. As Protheo held off the horde single-handed, Bowman took his sweet time to get nowhere, and as Protheo fell in battle as a hero, Bowman just looked like a total knob by comparison. With the loss of yet another minigunner, it would be difficult for the 4 remaining contestants to dominate the enemy at range any longer. This would place an absurd amount of stress on Suet, as they were effectively our last line of defense. It was only a matter of time before the rest of the horde broke through to the rec room. One of the cobras slithered past Suet, downing Mukag in 2 hits. With the last of the contestants dropping like flies, I suddenly realised that there was no way out of the rec room, and I doubted very much that those sofas would provide anything in the way of cover. Despite felling a dozen deadly predators, Suet was slowly being ripped apart. A cobra bite finally dropped him, leaving Yuka and Stout with nowhere to run, and nowhere to hide. They tried running and hiding anyway, which seemed to work for a while, until Yuka eventually got mauled by one of the last surviving bears. As the cobras formed an orderly line to murder our last contestant, Stout managed to take out 2 of the slithery bastards before he was eventually felled by their toxic bite. As the manhunters threw down the last of our contestants, the first game of Manhunter Deathmatch came to a brutal and desperate end. While the contestants had been defeated by the manhunting horde, there were still a decent number of survivors clinging on to life. The task of securing the arena and rescuing the survivors was now in the hands of the cleanup crew. As they dropped into the gauntlet, they seemed just a little bit too eager to murder every manhunter that moved. I even had to draft them just to get them under control. Although they slaughtered everything with astonishing speed, I didn't want these guys artificially inflating the size of the dead pile in the central kill box, so I pulled the cleanup crew back to the gauntlet. Despite holding their ground to the bitter end, it was far too late for fake Vikinger and Protheo. As quickly as they killed off the last of the manhunters, it seems we just weren't quick enough to save everybody. Just as the last of the manhunted exited the kill box, it looked as if Stout and Suet might still have a fighting chance. As the cleanup crew mowed down the last of the cobras, the arena was secured. While we managed to rescue a single battle hipster, we were too late to save Stout or Suet. Hiding in the back of the rec room, we found Yuka clinging onto life. Due to the massive rot stink clouds, we couldn't take any of the surviving contestants to the hospital, so instead we improvised, turning part of the South Barracks into a makeshift ward. While Yuka had managed to lose her jaw to a particularly angry bear, this was really the only significant injury to be suffered by the survivors. Everyone else just had scrapes and bruises, which, when I think about it, probably has something to do with the catabract armor all 3 of them were wearing the entire time. It took roughly half an hour to get rid of all these annoying death notifications. While there were 40 contestants at the start of this game of Manhunter Deathmatch, by the end of this game, 37 of those contestants would lie dead. I buried these dead contestants in a rather exclusive cemetery plot, which was in a rather fetching location, adjacent to the beach. This was pretty good by my standards, as normally when my colonists die, I just blow up their corpses. No body, no funeral. before the cleanup crew started shifting those unwanted animal corpse trophies, I did a rough count of all of the bodies, so that we might see some interesting statistics on our contestants' performance during round 3. While I can't be arsed figuring out how to put a graph on screen, I will post these statistics to the description below. Despite the cleanup crew having some serious speed buffs, it was taking them ages to get the new corpse heap assembled. In total, there was just under 750 Manhunter corpses in our base. Seeing as the cleanup crew had killed 100 Manhunters when they arrived, it's safe to say that 40 of our contestants managed to kill 650 enraged Manhunters over the course of 3 rounds. Round 3 had proven by far the most challenging, seeing our contestants fight hopelessly against 350 pissed off Manhunters, 80 of which were large and dangerous predators like elephants, rhinos or polar bears. All in all, the contestants had fought against ridiculous odds, shielded only by a truly stoic conviction to gun down an absolute shit ton of psychotic zoo animals. Well, it was either that or they would get eaten to death, like a lot. So considering all that, it was quite surprising to see 3 surviving contestants limping up to the winner's podium. As a reward for surviving Manhunter Deathmatch, our victorious contestants will be granted rare access to the Smoko Lounge. With any luck, that smoke leaf will help them a lot with their PTSD. For when the next game of Manhunter Deathmatch commences, these outstanding contestants will once again be thrust into life or death combat against the Scaria-infected horde. Participation is mandatory. Non-participation, attempts to escape the Smoko Lounge, or expressing negative viewpoints concerning Manhunter Deathmatch in any way, shape or form is punishable by death. In the time it took to clear these corpses out of the gauntlet and the central kill box, all of them had totally skeletonized. This gigantic mountain of 750 animal skeletons wasn't going to get rid of itself. Once the charges were set, the cleanup crew triggered the detonator with a whole bunch of grenades. There were some lazy sorts loafing around in cryosleep pods nearby that I couldn't be bothered waking up politely, so I blew them up instead. As the mines detonated in chain, they were like a lit fuse racing across the landscape. The final devastating payload was set to blow. And with a glorious explosion of corpses, the first game of Manhunter Deathmatch came to a spectacular close. In the next episode of Manhunter Deathmatch, would you like to see 40 impids fight off against a never-ending horde of cats? Would you like to see a team of Glitterworld marksmen face off against wave after wave of psychotic thrumbos? Or would you like to see a whole army of battle hipsters fight to the death against a never-ending tide of cobras? If you have any suggestions for crazy combinations like these, then I would very much like to see them in the comment section below. I try my best to respond to every comment sent my way, and please leave a like because that helps the algorithm a lot or something. And subscribe to our channel if you would like to see more morally ambiguous content such as this. This was a pretty long video for me. I'm trying to experiment with longer content, so hopefully you enjoyed the result. Don't forget to check out the description for some more detailed statistics on the contestants' performance during round 3. And thank you for hanging around till the very end of the video. You've really gone out of your way to push up our average view duration. So cheers for that. And with that, I will see you in the next one.